So welcome to Unity Church of San Marcos. So this is Sunday, March 5th. I'm getting ahead of myself. March 5th of 2023. We're glad that you're able to be with us, and I'm glad you all made it here today. And so we're going to have India Taylor, our musician, open our service with a special piece of music. What are you playing today, India?
I'm playing Water by Daniel Nemad because it's about non-resistance. I've seen my share of struggle when I thought that I knew best, when I've sailed through a storm instead of stopping to rest. And it always seems the hardest when I've made up my stubborn mind. Well, I'm changing my ways this time. I want to be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Want to be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Have you ever seen an eagle head straight into the wind? He doesn't pick a fight, he spreads his wings and just gives in. And in the end he always makes it home just fine. I guess he knows that every storm subsides. I wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. I'll let nature take its course. No more thinking that I know where this river's meant to go. I wanna be like water coming down a mountain into shadowy canyons, flowing from pool to stream. Wanna be like water, head uphill no more. I am bound for the sea. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that that's a fabulous way for us to open our service. How about you guys?
Yeah.
All right, so President Obama, or former President Obama, was once asked, have you ever read Reinhold Niebuhr? And Obama's demeanor changed immediately in this, as he responded to this question, and he said, I love him. He's one of my favorite philosophers. And he was then asked, what do you take away from him? And he responded, I take away the compelling idea that there's serious evil in the world, and hardship and pain. And we should be humble and modest in our belief that we can eliminate those things. But we shouldn't use that as an excuse for cynicism and inaction. I take away the sense that we have to make these efforts, knowing they are hard, and not swinging from naive idealism to bitter realism. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure that most of us have seen that the things that happen to us in our life, usually how we experience that, whatever it is what we feel really is important versus what actually may have factually happened. So how we experience something is how we are affected by it. Have you or someone you know ever had a dream? I'm not talking about like sleeping dream, but like a goal, a hope, a dream of theirs that they had wanted or you had wanted. But whenever you got it, everything that it entailed was so different and so much more difficult for you that you really just walked away, feeling bitter and resentful or overwhelmed, or just let it go because you felt like it wasn't what you were supposed to do or whatever it was, and you just walked away. I sense them sometimes that this is brought about by what is called usually a crisis of faith. Many of us have had those. And it's a spiritual disorder that that can happen to any of us, called crisis of faith. And it usually is that we lose sight of whatever feeling or motivation or drive that we had that moved us forward in the first place. All right? And a lot of the times that comes about that we begin to question what we believe. We begin to question even if we are valued, or the values that we hold, are they important? Are they real? And many times that is brought on by an experience of evil. Have you ever noticed that in your life? Do you think evil exists, first of all? As Reinhold has said, that evil is in this world. Do you believe that?
Always has been.
Always has been, okay. All right. So why do you believe evil exists if God is all-powerful?
Because there's no connection from that person, there's no connection to God or to something more powerful than them.
And if God is all-present everywhere?
Right. God, yeah, exactly. Omnipotent.
Okay.
Right.
So it comes down to the individual, right?
Oh,
Their
yes.
connection.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. Well, Jesus said that individuals that lose that connection, so to speak, that have let themselves, or that for whatever reason don't have that connection, they're called evildoers. All right? And he gave some advice regarding evildoers. This is from Matthew 5:39. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. Now, the title of this message today is Do Not Resist. And it's about the value of non-resistance to overcome evil. And you do so with good. Okay? But get this. Neither Jesus nor my message today is about letting someone slap you around. Okay. So let's get that real clear. That wasn't what Jesus was talking about. Non-resistance, like the water in her song. I mean, Daniel's song is just, there is a level there that the water, as you know, will carve through rock. It'll carve through all kinds of things over time with its persistence, doesn't it? So it's not that water is helpless, or that it's powerless, or that it's, in effect, and this is not a good metaphor, turning the other cheek to be slapped around. It is that it goes in another direction, and it flows in a non-resisting way, okay? And then it changes whatever the resistance is. Okay? So there's that point. And I would like to offer that let us not mistake that evil has some external power over us in which we are helpless. Okay? That's just not real. Because even, or evil in the biblical or spiritual sense simply means that which causes us suffering. Okay? And ultimately, you can say evil is not of God. Therefore, it's unreal. Huh? I'm not telling you that it doesn't have a reality. I'm saying that it has no permanent existence or reality of its own. Therefore, it's temporal, and its only life comes because it's a parasite. Its only life comes from you and me. And once that connection is broken, nothing remains. Nothing remains. So when an individual misuses the creative power that you and I have to, and have been graced with and built with, we call these individuals evildoers. Because we make choices or we take actions that can create harm or that can create pain for ourselves and another. So evil is that which causes suffering. So when you and I make those choices, and sometimes we do, that cause another to hurt or ourselves to hurt, we're experiencing evil in the world and being such. So Jesus was saying, turn the other cheek. What do you think he was meaning by that? Do you think he was meaning, well, they slapped you this way, turn it and let them do it the other way? Do you think that's what he was saying?
I don't think he was saying don't let it affect you.
Oh, we get to the heart. We got to the heart. We'll get there. Or I'll get there.
Yeah, that's good.
But very good insight. Very good insight. So I will speak to that question with two stories. The first one takes place not long ago at the Albuquerque airport at gate A4. And this is from my Facebook post by Naomi Shihab Nye. And she's wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal after learning that her flight has been delayed 4 hours. So what do? You're going to wander around. Anybody do that? Yeah, we all experience having to be delayed, all right? Anyway, she heard this announcement come over the speaker. It said, if anyone in the vicinity of gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, people pause. Nowadays, we just pause. She did. It's like, she knew Arabic, but am I really going to get involved, right?
Right.
So gate A4 was her gate, though, so she decided to go. And she went there, and at the gate, she saw this older Palestinian woman in the traditional embroidered dress like her grandma wore, crumpled and wailing on the floor, all right? And the flight agent just said, help. We told her that her flight was going to be late, and she did this. Oh my goodness, how do you react? Someone just falls to the floor wailing, right? So the minute this older woman who is in the midst of her, upset, hears Naomi's halting Arabic, right? She stopped crying. And it seems that she thought the flight had been canceled. And she was supposed to go to El Paso, which was where this was going, for a major medical treatment the next day. So Naomi assured her, no, you'll get there. You're just going to be a little later. And so she offered to call whoever was going to be picking her up. It happened to be her son. And so she spoke to him and told him about the delay, and even told him that she would try and stay with her mother and see if she could get seated next to her on the flight and help her throughout this time. And they talked to him. She let this woman speak to her son, and then she wrote, then we called her other sons just for the fun of it. And then we called my dad. And he spoke and she spoke with him for a while in Arabic. And they found out that they had, of course, 10 shared friends. And then she thought, again, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets that she knew? Now, all of this took up about 2 hours. And by the time this woman, she's so enamored with Naomi, and she's holding her hand, and they're chatting away, and she's talking about her life, etc. Well, this older woman had made some homemade mamul cookies, and these are dates and nuts that are covered with humbly powdered sugar, right? And she started handing them out to all the women in this gate, right? So for Naomi, it felt like a sacrament. You know, everybody's covered with powdered sugar, and there's, you know, in the end, Naomi looked around and she wrote, you know, she sees this gate at the gate of these late and weary travelers. This is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those women. This can still happen anywhere. Everything is not lost. All right.
Isn't she a poet?
I don't think she is a poet, but she could be. I'm not certain of her. But maybe because she knew quite a few poets, maybe she is. I should have looked at that, and I didn't. But like many people of Middle Eastern descent, Naomi has felt, seen, or experienced the fear that our world and this country has surrounding the Arabic culture, right? And I find her words, "Not everything is lost," so telling and uplifting, because this is showing us that as you and I heal that place in us, as we face the issues, or as we come to that place where when we've been struck, and in effect, you know, when someone is experiencing racism or they're experiencing hatred or anger or fear, they're struck, whether it's physical or whether it's whatever. She is showing what it means to turn the other cheek. It is ultimately to help heal and elevate our collective consciousness when we do that on our own, for ourselves. We actually create a balance, if you will, of the energies of life. And so that Naomi Shihabni's story is the first story. And I hope that you can say, I do not resist my good. I do not resist God. As a matter of fact, I think that's a pretty good thing for us to say to ourselves. I do not resist my good, and I do not resist God. So join me. I do not resist my good. I do not resist God. I do not resist my good. I do not resist God. So now for the second story. So Joseph was favored by his father. He was given a multicolored cloak, and he was sold into slavery by his brothers for jealousy because of his being a favored son. Then he rose in stature by increasing his master's wealth and prestige, okay? Well, then he was cast into prison, falsely accused of a crime by his slave owner's wife, okay? He rose up again as a prisoner. I mean, if he could be but in those days you could. And he gained some stature and privilege within the prison system. He even became ultimately a loved advisor to the Pharaoh, protecting and profiting Egypt in a great time of famine, and ultimately he rescued his very brothers and his people who had once sold him into slavery. Wow. Okay, talk about a slap on the cheek. Every time he turned around, he was getting slapped. Or at least that's how I would see it, wouldn't you? Yeah. So why use Bible stories? Are they really relevant to today, over 2,000 years later? When you consider the characters and the places and the different stories, they do represent aspects or characteristics that are within you and me and everyone, not only as characteristics, but potential, to be just waiting to be drawn forth. And so Joseph in Hebrew means Jehovah shall increase. And he, within you and me, symbolizes a state of consciousness, integrity, a forgiving spirit, total trust in God, and staying true to God's promise. These are characteristics that Joseph embodies. And he also, his name, Jehovah shall increase, is an aspect of potential within you and I, that in the phenomenal world, we can experience good increasing in our life, as that Joseph part of us becomes a reality for us. So let's think about this. Joseph's activities, his dream interpretations, and his abilities to turn the other cheek made it so that he continually moved forward in his life, all right? He didn't stay stuck. He didn't let those things get him down. So Egypt symbolizes the mental bondage that material things and thoughts of them can have in our lives. It can run our lives, right? How many of us literally feel like we don't have a life? We're simply out there going to work day to day, trying to make the next buck, and we don't really have a life. All right, that's one way of experiencing that mental bondage. Another one is greed, is where we're out to get ours, and we're going to get a lot of it. Greed is a lot more complicated than that, but it's that mindset that is different. And so that is another bondage to materiality. I'm not saying those things are bad, that material things are bad. No way. All I'm saying is that is a level of consciousness that we can sometimes get stuck in. So Egypt is symbolic of that physicality of life and the material sense of life, where the spiritual senses have no place for us. And so when we don't have that connection to that spirit, or its connection to spirit, that is what is commonly at the heart of evil in this world. All right? That disconnect. And like you were saying, is that lack of connection. Such a great insight, like I told you, right to the heart of it. So hear this truth. Evil is only overcome by good. Okay? So Jesus is using an idiom of his day that is meant for us to determine how to address things from a different perspective, to see things in a different way. He wasn't suggesting, as I said before, to be slapped around, nor to be walked on by any means. It's not okay for people to hit us. I don't care. That's not non-resistance. That's not non-violence. That's creating violence upon yourself. So that is not what he was saying. I hear Jesus telling us, do not resist or do not get caught up in the hurt, the events, the people, the circumstances, the issues, living in resentment. Don't get caught up in those. Rather, turn our attention and our thoughts to how can I create good? How can I make something better of this situation? Or how can I bring something good out of this experience? And so he's saying, turn the other cheek, turn our thoughts in a completely different direction, turn to spirit, ask for guidance, and then use your imagination that comes with that guidance to find the ways to bring forth what we've been given. Do not resist good. Do not resist God. Say it with me. I do not resist God. Oh, come on.
I do
not resist God. Thank you, Spirit. There we go. So following this line of thought then, we can say there is a Joseph in each of us. Reading this story honestly helps us to get in touch with what it is on a spiritual dynamic that we can use to address the things in our lives, okay? Integrity is not an easy thing for us as human beings, okay? In any age, having integrity takes effort, takes energy. It's difficult. But Joseph was able to maintain that in a different culture, with a different value system, and he did it over and over and over again. He stayed true to his values and his choices. And he was bought as a slave by Potiphar. He was elevated to the top of that household. He went to jail rather than betray his master or his integrity. He did something I think is also really hard to do. He received messages through dreams and interpreted them exactly as they came, rather than trying to put his own spin on it, whether for his own profit or for anything else. It's just like, this is it. It's free. It's yours. Does this sound familiar to any of you? These were lonely days for him. He was rejected by his family. How many of us feel no connections to our families of origin? He was twice bought and sold like livestock. How many of us feel like we are simply, every time we go to work, all we're doing is we're being sold off all of our talents, all of our skills? He was far from home. He was without friends. Add the stress of managing Potiphar's household with all the difficulty with the mistress constantly coming on to him. How many of us have had sexual harassment? Oh my God. Yeah. So his story is pretty relevant to a lot of us. He was overseeing the slaves. He was mastering this peculiar protocol of official events as the advisor to Pharaoh, the ruler of the land, right? So he had a position of importance, but his work was draining. He could have justified any poor choice. And a lot of us do make some poor choices when we feel overwhelmed or we're drained or any of those things. You and I can do that, right? Anybody done that? Made a poor choice? I know. None of you have done that. Well, I have done it once. Okay. So here he is, and you and I, jilted, bruised, emotionally, spiritually, sold out, and turned away. Stranded in the ditches of bad health or bad credit or bad luck. Okay? Few friends, fewer solutions. Anybody found that your hours are long and the nights are longer? Yeah. So Mr. or Mrs. Potiphar comes along, slides a room key in our direction, or some other enhancement, right? You know, I'll give you this, whatever this is, but something we really, really think we might like. And yet, there is this moment of queasiness right here in our stomach area, right? Most of us experience that. And if we will take just a moment to notice it, what we will know, and what I want you to hear, is Joseph was about signs. That's a sign that we are a choice away from evil and being an evildoer. When you experience that sense, that queasiness, that is the sign that should put us on a high alert that something is amiss. Okay? So Joseph used these things as signs. So asking ourselves, how is this good and will it hurt anyone? Myself or anyone else? Okay? What do? Do not resist God. You can pay some personal bills or get out of debt with taking funds. No one will know, right? I deserve this, or I can pay it back quickly, whatever. We can justify stuff. You've got friends who, co-workers who want to offer you some drug or want a relationship because you're all that. And maybe your spouse thinks you're not that right now. Maybe you think, I'm just human. I'm just human. Someone's helped you figure out a way to cheat at school. Or maybe pornography on the internet is easily available and it works for you because something else, being real with other people, isn't working for you. Desperation, turbulent times will tempt you and I to forget, to doubt, to distrust ourselves, God. We move into that place where too easily a crisis of faith, crisis of believing in ourselves or believing in God. And we'll try to fix bad conditions with even worse choices, okay? Impulsive, hurtful decisions. Turning the other cheek, not always easy. But Joseph believed that God had a plan for him to rescue. He looked back over his life, and he believed God had a plan for him to rescue Israel's household from famine. Sometimes we have to get further along in whatever the process we're going through is before we can evaluate what it is that's going on. So God has a plan for him to go to prison. God has a plan for him to be sold when he's a free man. God has a plan. What? Does God have that kind of plan? No, it's not about that. God's plan is that created the possibilities for you and I to experience and to have healing or grace or love or joy, wonder, to have the will to do and to express in this world, to have strength of character. God's plan is that you and I have the capacity to become Christed human beings. And yes, we get and have experiences in life that are not enjoyable. Those experiences are not what God's planning. God's plan is for good. And so, how do we create that good? It is about being faithful to God's service within us. Joseph felt his material achievements, though they were impressive, they were temporal. He didn't get caught up in the status. I mean, come on. He was the second hand, the right hand to the ruler of the whole country, right? You think he ever had a crisis of faith? You think Joseph may have had some doubts and wonder, what am I doing here? How did I get here? Yeah? Yeah. And I think he did. I think he overcame, and that crisis of faith brought him to that place where he was willing to get real. What am I going to do? Here I am. And there's no getting out of this until I do. Sometimes you and I need to remember that it's the relationships and the spiritual connection to God that are truly the important things in this world. Yes, to survive, we need material access and we need resources. But again, in changing our focus, in changing and not staying focused on the resentments or the anger or the hurt or the cruelties of life, and moving into where am I and what can I do? What can I do? What can I do for good? Do not resist good. Like the water, we move where it takes us and then we erode or we get rid of that resistance, don't we? So let's practice using it wisely. Thank you for being with me, and I pray that this service has served you and that it offers you a way to think about Joseph in you. The next time something occurs and you need to turn your face in the other direction. God bless you for being here.
Thank you. That was so